2, 3. Hello and welcome to the Brainstorm Podcast. And now, your host, Sonny Perlman.
Hey guys, today I sat down with the awesome Ozer Babad, and he was telling us about his new organization, Anuvim, or Nevinim, however you want to say it. Amazing organization that he's building to help really give quality care to people, and that was awesome to talk about. We also talked about a lot of other things in this topic, in this field, and I hope you enjoy it. I sure did. Ozer. Okay. Hello.
How you doing?
So I just want to say for the Ilum, for the audience out there, it is 1:45 in the morning. So if we say ridiculous things, we apologize in advance.
Definitely apologize.
So I'm very, very excited you do this podcast with me.
Very much so.
I'm very, very excited. I asked you months ago. You finally came through.
Thank you for coming through.
I came through. And we're sitting in your house, which I love.
Really?
You know, the last time I did this in a house, I think it was with our friend Mechi.
Really?
Who no one calls him Mechi. We call him Micah.
Yeah. We're in Crown Heights?
Crown Heights. I sat with Mechi and Isaac, and they were...
Was it on the floor and chairs?
It was actually at a table, but it was fantastic.
Very
It
nice.
was really amazing. Okay, so we don't have direction, and we're tired, and we were talking about how many things we want to talk about. We were saying Divrei Torah and good stuff.
Yep.
So we'll just start with, I really want to talk to you a little bit, and this could go in any direction, but I really want to talk to you a little bit about the Chassidic community in particular, because I am curious about it.
Okay.
Meaning, I work with mainly not the Chassidic community, although I've worked with a lot of Chassidic people, and but I'm always asking a ton of questions. So I know, since you're working 1225 and your shul and all the things that are going on in your life, which hopefully we'll say in the intro, but your experience in the Chassidic community. So let me just ask you a start-off question so that we have somewhere to start. Sure. What would you say is the difference? Like, I'm working with kids at risk, like I hate the word, but kids that are struggling or addicts from, let's say, the Yeshivish community or the Mount Orthodox community or other communities. What would you say would be the difference? Like, what are the unique struggles of the Chassidic community with these guys, to start with?
The unique struggles?
Yeah.
First of all, it's very nice to be here.
Okay.
Thank you. I think they're all the same. All humans are the same, especially Yiddish and all the same. The unique struggles that they go through is their chinuch is different. A Litvish kid, his chinuch is based on I don't know if Flatbush as much as Lakewood, but as I've seen throughout the years, is based on the Torah perspective, where most people sit in kollel and they learn. If the father doesn't, the value of Torah is different in the Litvish home than in the Chassidic home. Not that I'm saying that they devalue Torah in the Chassidic home, but the way they see it is different. A kid feels pressure to achieve a certain level of growth in Torah. A Chassidic kid has a different mahalach in life. The pressures are different. The pressures are more external.
There are some serious pressures, though, right?
From the Torah, or from in the Chassidic world, it's more external.
What are the Chassidic? Yeah. What do you mean by external pressures?
Looking Chassidic, not embarrassing the family with the way you look externally. You need to look like the Chassidus that you belong in. Right. For example, Vishnitz, their hats the Bibahid is turned the opposite way than the Belza and.
Could you explain that to me? Just because I have no idea what you're talking about.
There's a bow on the hat. So I believe that the Belza bow is on the right side, or most Hasidim, but the Vishnitz is on the other side because they turn the hat around. It's a different side. Different side.
I'm just saying I would not be caught dead with my bow on the left side. I'm just saying.
Right.
No, I'm kidding.
Terrible, right?
I got it.
Then you have the Chassidic kids that come from the Rebbish homes, where it's even more pressuring, where you dress with more.
Wait, can I just ask you a question that's completely irrelevant to what we're talking about? When did this lock in, the clothing stuff? Do you have like, is it like did it lock in by the Baal Shem Tov? Like when did? I'm just asking historical because I'm curious. Such a big deal.
I believe most of it started after the war, but in Hungary a bit before. The Haskalah was very big in Hungary and in other Hasidic towns,
Right.
where I believe the leaders wanted to differentiate between the non-Jewish or the maskilim and the real Hasidic Jewish people, or the lesson of the from people in their eyes. So they created a way of dress code, and it became throughout the years more and more stringent, where it became somehow more valued than keeping to halacha. I'll give you an example.
Right.
Where I had an argument with a father many years ago, going back 12 years, I guess, or 13 years, where I told him, what's more important to you, your son wearing his garb, like the hat and jacket,
Right.
or him keeping Shabbos? And the father was like, the hat and jacket's more important. I said, would you like to sign it on a paper? I actually have the paper somewhere. I got to find it. He signed that he would rather his son wear the garb than the keep the Shabbos, because he believes he'll keep the Shabbos if he wears the garb.
So I want to
Because
tell
he's
you
not going to
that
embarrass his family.
I wouldn't have believed that, but I have exact same story.
No way.
It was with a mother, and I said, and it was from curiosity, because I'm not in the community. You already knew what was going on. I realized I was listening to the conversation, and it was such an emphasis on the clothing. And the clothing. This is early on. I didn't know what the heck she's talking about. Like, what's the difference? And then I realized, I asked her, would you rather your kid ate McDonald's like on Shabbos and went in and paid and ate McDonald's like a cheeseburger, or takes off the levish, however you say it,
Yeah.
and it wasn't even a pause. She's like, you could come back from the cheeseburger.
You can't
come back from taking off the levish. Wasn't even a pause. She like, and I like literally I'm from a different community, and to me it was like, that's crazy. That's what it sounded like to me.
Right. I remember years ago going into the movies, and I used to go to the movies. Yeah, and I meet this guy wearing the flat Bieber hit, like Satmar, with the garb and the tzitzis and the drekel and everything. I'm like, I don't mind seeing you like this, but why don't you just take it off and leave it in the car, come in just with the tzitzis on, you know what? He's like, what do you mean? If I could go like this to shul, I could go like this to the movies. I'm just afraid somebody's going to see me on the way into the theater dressed different, and I'm going to have to like answer to him why I'm dressed different. I said, but you're walking into the theater. What's the difference?
It's true.
He's like, no. I'm not going to be walking into the theater without the hat and jacket. I'd rather not.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Can I tell you that this Motzei Shabbos I went on a date with my wife to the movies, because I still go to the movies.
Very good.
I watched Wakanda Forever, which is the new Marvel movie. I'm not sure you're aware of that. This is a very important movie.
No.
It wasn't important. But sitting right next to us were a Chassidic couple.
No way. Really?
I think that they were probably embarrassed. They looked a little embarrassed when we passed them. It was very interesting to me. I don't think I've seen that. It was a Chassidic full garb, everything. Like what you're saying. We're matching up stories, and we're in a theater where like the seats lean back,
Right.
like lounge chairs. It was very awkward. So I set it up that, like when you're at like a Shabbos table, that my wife was next to the woman, and I realized I did that like unconsciously, because we were in. Anyway, it's not relevant.
That's funny.
But no, so. The levish is really, really important. You're saying
emphasis.
most of it came from after the war.
I believe so. They wanted to secure that they're not going to have the issue they had before the war. Most people don't know that before the war, the Yiddish theater was very busy. People were leaving the we'll call it the frum spectrum in a very easy way, because it was much more entertaining to not be frum.
Right.
They don't tell that to us. They tell us that pre-war everything, there was a perfection and everybody was frum, but the percentage was very low.
Right.
Excuse me. And after the war,
Although Chassidic communities was doing all right. Kind of.
depends where. In Hungary, some were, and
Yeah.
some were not. Excuse me. In
I
Poland,
think everybody else was doing terrible. Right?
and Lita a little bit, a bit worse than Hungary.
Right.
But it depends. I used to speak to a lot of Holocaust survivors. I grew up with them.
Right.
And they all had different versions of what was happening there before the war. Some of them were really surprised to see the Chassidic way become more external than internalized.
Right.
I mean, everybody runs to Reb Shaila today, Baruch Hashem, but Reb Shaila, I believe, was very internalized. He didn't care what people looked like. He fed everyone equally.
Right.
And he cared for every yid equally, which I guess is why everybody's running to him today.
Right.
I do believe that there are Hasidic Rebbes today, like the Kruller Rebbe in Williamsburg, that doesn't see any externalization at all. He only likes to internalize every yid. But there's a lot of externalization. I met a boy a year ago that went from having the long payas and the full of bush coming from a real Rebbe home to the next day completely clean shaven, everything off. And he was like, what's his first move? I'm going to go to the church. I'm going to go to the Catholic religion. And I'm like, Catholic religion? Why you? I mean, you're leaving, you're saying that you're being oppressed in the Chassidic religion. Why the Catholic? Like, he doesn't realize how connected he is to be oppressed and to be connected to a dictatorship or whatever else you want to call it. That
You think he actually understood what the Catholic religion meant?
Not really, but he didn't realize what he's being pulled to. It's psychologically.
I think that's just the biggest rebellion you could possibly do.
Yeah.
I actually used to tell people that if they don't want to get kicked out of school, so then you got to come back into school with a big cross on you, and you just be like, all right, if I can't be in school, I guess I got to go to church and then go to another religion. No one ever took me up on it. I don't know if it would have worked.
You never know.
I don't think it would have worked.
It's a whole different subject talking about schools. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about schools?
Well, today one of my young chevra, not married yet, just campaigned for a friend of his that has 2 kids that were just accepted after 6 months to school. It's not that the tuition is paid for 6 months. And he campaigned. He raised all the money for their tuition. And they're in school tomorrow.
That was tonight?
Yeah.
What?
That's in Muncie, by the way. That's not Lakewood. Imagine what I could say about Lakewood. I recently opened a girls' school.
You just opened a girls' school?
Yes, I did.
I didn't know about this. When did this happen?
September.
Wow. What's the reason for that?
This girls' school was open before I reopened it under my leadership. It was about to close, and it's very much needed. It's for parents that want to be less judged upon their external appearance, and it's also for families that some are rejected from the regular systematic schools, and some just don't want to go through the struggle of begging to get into school. And by us, they know that they could find place. We're not saying that we accept everyone, but if a girl fits into the criteria of the education, she'll be accepted to the school.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I never talked about this on my podcast, the school situation. And I got pretty lucky with my kids, although I did have to go to war for one of my kids, and I'm glad I won that war, but it was I did have to go to war. And thank God I did. And I had enough backing to be able to pull off a war. But when I hear the stories, to me, they're the horror stories of horror stories about kids not getting into school. And, I mean, what's that 6 months? Is that parent couldn't pay? Is that the reason? Or that's just like, why did they come up with that tonight? Like
I didn't ask him. But I don't think it's that. I think it's more, if we're going to accept you, we want to know securely that we're not going to have to chase you for money or wait for tuition. We need the money now. We'll have the money, and you're in. Something like that. More feeling in control.
Right.
It's now that I'm collecting tuition for the first time, and it's not the first time. I had a yeshiva years ago, so I collected, but it's not the same way. And we're collecting, and there are mothers that call me up, and they're single mothers, and they're begging, please, I need more time. I can't afford it. And I'm being more compassionate, and I'm understanding them while knowing that I'm going to have to raise the money so I can pay payroll on time.
Right.
It's a whole new world. One that I didn't expect, and I wasn't connected to whatsoever. I do appreciate the people that I worked for all the years that paid me on time.
Yeah.
Now that I'm covering a massive payroll every month.
Yeah, it's hard.
Pretty much so, yeah. It's not easy.
It's very hard.
And the idea is that an educator should be paid on time. A day or two late is the most, but it shouldn't be more than that because they work hard and they're good people.
I can tell you, I work for Chaim Glantz. I don't remember him ever paying anybody late.
Really?
He refuses to pay late. We'll take loans, the stuff he will do to make everybody get paid on time. He's like, you cannot pay people late. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's such a, and I have that with my organization also. Like, I refuse to pay anybody late because it's just such it's a demoralizing thing when you're just waiting on money because you're trying to do something special. It's not like they're getting paid so much.
And it's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to pay on time.
Right. That's maybe where he gets it from.
Yeah.
But so the money thing, I don't know how to fix that. I came up with an idea ages ago, and it's interesting. Maybe I haven't spoken about this because most of my kids are out of school now. So, when you're not in the problem, you like kind of forget about the problem.
Right.
That's just kind of sad. But can I tell you Dvar Torah?
Sure.
Okay. It's late. We do Dvar Torah. I'll tell you a cool Dvar Torah from my wife's grandfather.
Okay.
Okay. My wife's grandfather, Yosef Gubitz, awesome dude. He wrote an amazing book about his Holocaust experience. One of my favorite people I've ever met in my life. He passed away, unfortunately. Anyway, so he used to always say this to our Torah. Now, I'm a Yeki, so I don't do my Machronim, although my brother does, he doesn't realize he's a Yeki. But the idea of Mayim Achronim is that it says that the reason Yekis don't do it is because it says we do Mayim Achronim because it's a sakana for the Melech Sodomus, the salt of Sodom, goes into your eyes and you get blinded. You're going to get blinded, right? Mm-hmm. So apparently there was this salt. You know better than me, but there was this salt called Melech Sodomus, and it was very dangerous, and people used to dip their food in it, and it would go in their eyes. So the Yekis are like, okay, we don't have that salt anymore. We don't dip.
Have to use it.
Stop it.
Right.
It's very practical. So my wife's grandfather said that the word is like this. He says, before we eat a meal, we're hungry. And when we're hungry, we see everybody else is starving. We could see when you're hungry, you look around, you're like, everybody come eat. Join me. Join me at my table. You come eat, I come eat. It's like before you win the lottery. I'll help everybody come. I'm hungry. And then when you finish the meal, you're full. And when you're full, it's the salt of Sodom. Sodom was that inhospitable. All of a sudden would go into your eyes. You'd be blinded by the bitterness of Sodom, where all of a sudden you didn't see people as hungry anymore. You're not hungry anymore. So now you don't see that people are starving around you. So you don't see it. So you should wash your hands that you never blind yourself with this Melech of Sodom. And you can always remember to take care of the people that are hungry around you.
Wow, that's a nice word.
It's an amazing word.
Wow. Must have been a sweet man.
Such a wonderful person. And I still don't do my Achronim. But because that's what Germans are like.
You still feed people when they're hungry. So.
I do feed people when they're hungry.
That's it.
I learned from the thing. But when I was going through this, I thought, wouldn't it be amazing if they unionized tuition? Like all the parents in these schools unionized. And they say, we go on strike. All the tuition money goes into a pot. We'll pay you. If the school doesn't behave, we'll stop paying. Meaning,
schools will behave.
They'll start behaving.
Right.
What I'm saying is right now, it's like there's a couple of very wealthy people that run the schools, and everybody else has got to behave the way they say.
Right.
And if the rest of the people, you start a union, we're putting our money in the union, and the union decides, and if you're going to kick a kid out, the union's going to come and fight for you. Be like, okay, let's hear. Let's see your paper trail. Like when you fire someone in the union. What is the reason you're not accepting him? What is the reason you're kicking him out? I know this idea sounds wacky, But it to me, when I was going through it, I was like, I think we should do something like that, where we taking the power back to the people.
Interesting.
I can tell you, I moved my kids. A lot of my kids went to modern Orthodox schools at the end, and I'm not. They have their own problems, modern Orthodox. But I can tell you this: for some reason, no one told them that they're in charge. The modern Orthodox schools.
Interesting.
No one told them. They're terrified of the student body leaving.
And they're terrified of the parents probably also.
And they pay. If you complain, it's taken care of. I mean, the parents they're running around. The soccer moms coming in yelling and about like this has got to change, and they are scared of the parent body.
Yeah, the Chassidic schools, you'll scream, you'll find yourself outside with your kids and their backpacks.
Right.
And you're gone.
Yep. So you opening this school.
Yeah.
Sorry, we went off on a huge tangent. Opening this school, was this is dealing with a lot of these girls would not end up in any schools, or
most of the girls would not be in school. They would struggle till now. I know of a few girls that are still not in school that might be entering this week, not by me and others, but most of these girls would not find a school. In Lakewood, there's a very big void in schools, high schools, and the ones that do get accepted are the ones that are easier for the schools to deal with.
Right.
And the ones that have any type of background or issue. I have some divorced homes by me also, and it's not easy for most of the systematic schools to take them. They wouldn't be in school.
They just wouldn't take them in school.
No.
I know in Lakewood it's also in the yeshiva schools. Maybe Chassidic is worse?
No, I don't have a Chassidic school. By me, it's a open, like it's a regular Beis Yaakov.
Right, Beis Yaakov.
The system is regular, like you walk in there, you won't think that it's a different school. It's not a different school than any other school.
Right.
The best teachers, top of the line, the best principal, regular system. All classes, Baruch Hashem. Some are smaller. They're going to grow hopefully next year. We have more and more applications coming in, Baruch Hashem. But that's just my side thing.
That's a side gig.
Completely side.
Okay, what are you doing now? Let me hear.
What am I doing now?
Yeah, you're starting a new thing. Let me hear about that.
I'm starting I started a new organization a few months ago. The name is Nevonim. Nevonim definition, I think, according to Rashi, is Maven Davar Mitach Davar. One that understands an idea before it's completely explained to him. Somebody that's smarter. Most humans are smart as such. People get judged differently, so they don't realize how novain they are. Right. They judge themselves sometimes worse than they should. The idea of this organization is to pick up the pieces where there are tremendous amount of great organizations out there. I love them all.
Yada, yada, yada.
They do amazing work.
But no, I'm kidding. And
the one thing that I learned from losing some real good people to suicide and overdose is that there are people that we, like the name of the campaign that I'm going to be running soon is read between the lines. We don't sometimes read between the lines, and we miss an opportunity at helping someone. So the person could be at the best organization, and they just need someone to be there for them at 11 o'clock at night just to answer the call. What Nevonim does is we do that. If someone needs to end up, for example, one of our clients ended up in a psych ward, in a rehab, in a trauma center by the best therapist, and they're still lost. And they don't know what to do. Their family's exhausted. There's no money. They don't want to deal with them anymore. And they're only 22 years old at this point.
Right.
Nevonim gets involved. First, we evaluate. We make sure another therapist is involved. And if we have to get the person insurance to end up in another trauma center, we do. But this time it's a different experience because we help the person communicate with the center the right way. We communicate with the center ourselves. We make sure they're happy with their state. We make sure they work as hard as they can to help their life. We don't allow them to become codependent.
What does that mean?
Too attached to us.
Well, I know codependent, but what do you mean? Like, too dependent on you?
Too dependent on us and on anybody besides for themselves. They learn how to be themselves, how to deal with their problems. Today we had a meeting with a person that's already passed the rehab. They're in the sober living. They live in a sober home, and this is in Florida.
Right.
And they just had an argument with the staff. We had a meeting on Zoom. We had a conversation, and the person realized that we were there for them. One of my case managers was there in Florida with them. He's in Florida.
Yeah, I mean, would you go to Florida, or that's just accidental?
My case manager lives there.
Oh, he lives there. Okay.
So, but I am going to have case managers in California, Florida, and in the tri-state area, so they can be in the centers that we send people, wherever it is, or at someone's home if needed.
So if someone calls up, is this for charge or is this for free?
It's free.
What is it? So it's totally free. You call up, but you're talking about case management, but on a level that's
On a very high level.
very high.
But we're not saving the world. We will handle 100 cases the first year if we can. And we're not saying yes to every case. We are going to refer people further if we have to, and which we do.
I should let you know that there's a really cool sober living up in Muncie.
I know.
Our Village Sober Living, run by a very, very, a Navine, I would say.
Navine, right. One of the biggest Navinim of the generation.
Serious Navine.
Right?
Okay, no,
I know. I heard he's looking for some managers in his home.
We're looking for a new counselor. That's right.
Counselor, right? Very good.
It happens.
I was on the phone with a kid today. He tells me if you need any more helpers, call Sani. He'll have you hooked up right away. He probably has 1 million guys in Lakewood that could help you work for you.
That could help what? To work?
Work for you. Yeah. He thought I need new case managers today. So
Oh yeah.
when you call another yid for help, they offer you many different types of help right away.
Right.
Especially when you call them for money, they find every single way
So
to help
much.
you. Right?
They're so good at giving you advice.
Advice? Oh, the best advice in the world.
I don't ask for money. I just ask for advice. Then I say, how am I going to pay for that advice? so much money, your advice.
Yeah.
Wait, so, okay, this is very cool.
Yeah.
This is very cool. I do know that all these other organizations are super flooded.
Yes.
And everybody gives different level, because things like this do exist in some level. Everybody gives like a different level.
Right.
But I could tell you this, and I'm going to say a pet peeve,
Right.
and I want you to assure me that it's not going to happen.
Okay.
I can't stand when someone has to wait a week for a phone call back.
Not going to happen.
I can't. It's so painful. People are really, really suffering. And they call me back, and I say, call this place. And then they wait.
I got a call yesterday, was referred from a therapist.
Yeah.
This morning, already spoke to one of my case managers, and it's moving forward. It's less than 12 hours since I got the first call.
Wow.
When it was moving forward. Now we're already at 24 hours or more, but it was taken care of. I have another case referred by a psychiatrist that we work with tonight. Tomorrow, they have an appointment with me at 11 on the phone. And I believe by 1, I already know which therapist they're going to be going to, Mitzshem, tomorrow.
Wow.
I'm not saying it will be like that forever, but that's the plan.
If
not, I'm not doing the right job.
Well, I like what you're saying, because I feel that the answer you gave like a little bit back. You're like, I'm going to work with 100 people.
I'm not going to.
Like, we're doing quality over, like, I'm going to impress you with 1,000 people, 2,000 people, but then not giving anybody any services.
But we're doing only one thing.
Yeah.
We're not leaving the idea. We deal with case management of trauma, not psychological issues that are bipolar and higher psychiatric stuff. We don't do. It's only mental health to the trauma part, which is much. I mean, I assume you could explain it better, but I don't think I would go further than that.
Right.
And we do 18 to 30.
That's super confusing, though.
Yeah, I know there are dual diagnoses.
Yeah,
that
no,
are
I'm
more
saying there's
confusing,
so many gray areas.
But that's
okay.
we know how to differentiate. We had a case that came to us that belonged by a different organization, and they're doing great there. We follow up with them, but we're not handling that case. We sent it further to another organization.
Right.
We're speaking to the family members, and they're very happy to speak to us, and they love us, but they didn't belong by us because we couldn't handle this the right way. And the best part of it is to know how to say we're not doing it. My main case manager is one of my guys. Mm-hmm. He's a student for years. He OD'd in my hands. He was dead in my hands for a little bit before Hatzalah got there. Right. Today he's married. He lives in Florida. He'll be proud to speak about this in public.
Wow.
And he's doing amazing, phenomenal. He
Got
runs.
my
He runs.
podcast? I want
He
to
would.
run my podcast.
He would.
Wow.
He's unreal. And Baruch Hashem should help him have koyach to continue. He's handling cases like fire.
So, okay. So, for him,
Mm-hmm.
I understand why he's doing it.
Right. For me.
Why are you doing this?
Ah.
Why? The truth is, I've known you for a really long time.
Right.
And it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
What I'm saying is like, what is driving you to keep going? What is it? What is it?
Most people wonder that.
Okay, I'm wondering, live on my podcast. It's not live.
Well, I'm a Chassidic boy that left Yeshiva at 18, so I'm still at risk. I think I'm going to stay at risk till I die.
Yeah.
At times, I'll be at risk of just eating too much kakash cake, but I'll be at risk.
Not anymore. You look great.
Thank you, Hashem. I still eat a lot of junk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
But a few years ago, the real drive for this organization is a few years ago losing a boy. His name was Shmili.
yeah.
He died in front of my place. He took his own life.
Ooh, I remember that.
Remember that one?
Ouch.
I spoke to him the night before, and I realized that his family is amazing. His friends are just the best friends in the world. He just needed Nevonim in his life for a few months, and he would have seen that there's a reason to live. Because he didn't need people to feel bad for him and tell him, you don't need to go to therapy. You're good. You don't need to go for bigger help. You're good. You're fine.
Right.
The night before he passed away, I told him that I'll take over a lot of his worries in life, and he should just go out with a girl that he was being offered and live life. And he told me, I just don't understand it. I don't get it. And the truth is, I probably will never understand what it means to be in someone's head the day they die.
Right.
But what I do understand is that if there are 100 people in our lives that could be saved that way, whether it's from taking their life or just internally dying and not telling anyone that they're dying, internally, before just they could live amongst all humans for the next 100 years, but internally be dead.
Right.
If we could help them feel alive, it's worth it to create another Nevonim and be up till 3 a.m. with another case and to be there for people. And I'm being driven by that. And it used to be only teenagers, right? We deal with teenagers all these years.
Yeah.
Most of my cases today are mothers and fathers of 2 or 3 kids under the age of 30 with a crazy amount of pain.
You know, it's interesting. I actually brought this up the other day that I was on another podcast, and the guy was saying that, like, I was normal as a teenager. I always found those people are much more at risk is when it all of a sudden kicks in at 22, 23 years old.
Right.
And they never got the help, and no one's interested in a 23-year-old. What are they doing for them? So that's really, really important.
Well, I just sent a 23-year-old mother to trauma center. She's doing great.
Yeah.
We also take care of the kids. She has kids at home. We made sure that there's gifts for them once a week when she's not here, and a letter from the mother. Hours set up for speaking to the mother. Make sure there's kosher food for Shabbos. Being in the best center, you still need to feel like you're connected if you're a frum person. Most people that end up in these places are not really frum. But if
Right.
you're frum, you want to feel somewhat connected. That's part of the healing.
Right.
Knowing that someone is there for their family makes it much easier for them. It's a pretty good drive, but seeing people heal is a good feeling.
Right. I mean, I'm always asking this question to people because I can't figure out how I'm still going.
Yeah, how are you still going?
I find it's probably the most commonly asked question on this podcast because I really sometimes, I guess it's also as I get healthier, it's harder for me to do this. It's harder. It's a harder thing to do, to watch so much pain. And it's like that Dvar Torah said before, like when we're suffering, we see everybody suffering, like, you know, and you start feeling better and you're like, I don't know if I could do this.
To me, the most difficult part is that when they are healthy, the people we help, the disconnect that we have with them. Quite recently, I realized that when you really help someone, you're done helping them and they're out of your life. And it used to be easy. I have hundreds of guys that I help, Baruch Hashem,
Yeah.
thank you Hashem. And most of them, I have zero connection with them. When I do a fundraiser, I ask them to help me fundraise. And today I felt really down about it. I don't want to ask them for any help. I want them to feel like they're independent and they're on their own. It's part of the success. It's part of feeling good about myself, is knowing that I'm not connected with them, but it's pretty difficult. Like one of my first students is sitting, Talmud Chacham, sitting and learning in Eretz Yisrael.
Yeah.
I haven't even seen his kids.
Wow. And it's because he forgot about you, or
I don't think he'll ever forget about me. I just
Right.
think that he's doing so great that I don't think he will want to be connected with me because the people around me are not the level that he would want to be with, and there'll be a certain I don't know. The Chassidic world is different, and the Litvish world I
I
realize.
know. Actually,
that there's such a
Shlomo
such a
Kabach
catch-
used to talk about this.
He did?
Shlomo Kabach used to say this idea. What did he say? The lights went off, so I got thrown off for a second.
there.
That's fine. Which one do I press?
The one on the right.
This?
No.
This?
Yes.
Uh,
No. Bottom. Right.
There we go. Turn the lights on. Shlomo Kabach used to say, you could bring her on, that she used to get so sad. You can have her come. That she would get so sad. He would get so sad because all these people came from because of him.
Really?
And then he wouldn't get invited to their weddings, and wouldn't get invited to their, because they moved on. Like, they wanted to forget that part, that Shlomo Kabach era. And he would get really hurt about it. It was interesting.
I read a lot of that sadness in some of his history and stuff like that.
Could I tell you something terrible about me?
Let me hear.
I'm not hurt by it.
No, you like to disconnect with it, right?
I don't think I could handle it. It's so. I think it's unconscious. I don't think it's on purpose. But I think I only have space for a certain amount of people in my life at a time. So, like, I'm constantly getting new people. This is horrible. I can't believe I'm admitting this, because there are a lot of people out there that are hurt that I don't spend a lot of time with them anymore. But they're like doing well for 5 years, and they're like, oh, now you don't care about me anymore. And like, my whole philosophy is as close to unconditional love as it gets. It's very similar to your ideas, right? And now this person's doing amazing. And obviously, if they'll reach out to me, and I'm there for them as much as I can,
Right.
But I don't feel like this is need to like be connected anymore, because I think my system is just exploding with too many people. So like I haven't figured out the exact number. Let's say it's like 200 people at a time, and then so if I take in another person, someone's got to get the boot.
So then I wonder how the Lubavitch Rebbe did it. Can you imagine?
Do you think he had personal connections to
He
everybody?
knew every person in the room.
I know people. Doesn't mean.
No, he had kesher to so many people. But it's very interesting you're saying that you. I don't mind disconnecting with a lot of them. Like I went
Yeah.
through my names now. I have groups with so many guys, but when they become part of your family,
Yeah.
it's pretty difficult. Like walking away.
Yeah.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, just to tell everybody what these pauses are for is
Right.
that we're in Ozer's house and things are happening,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool.
At 1:30 in the morning.
At 1:30 in the morning.
Things are happening.
Maybe your wife wants to share a thought. My wife is calling. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
Hold on 1 second. This is 1 second. 1 second. Hold on. Yali, I'm in the middle of a podcast. I'm in the middle of a podcast. Could I call you back a little later? Or is it important? Right now. Love you, bye. Anyway, so
This is good stuff.
sorry. Okay. Unprofessional. But I have a rule.
That's the most professional.
Yeah. Everybody who listens to my podcast know that I'm pretty psycho about my wife, so I think they'll all forgive me for that. But if you're not a fan, and this is the first podcast you're listening to, you could expect that in every other podcast.
Yeah.
I have that rule with my guys. It's on this topic. If I'm talking to anybody or anything and my wife calls, I'm going to answer. It's just how I am.
In general, all the time.
Like all the time.
I should learn how to do that.
Because it's, to me, it's very practical. Like I talk about, like there's 200 people in my life, or 300 people, 500. I don't know how many people at a time, right? My wife is constant, and she's the one I'm gonna grow old with. Whoever I'm talking to now,
Gone.
they're gonna go at some point. Even my kids. If I'm talking to my kids, and my wife calls, she goes first. My kids all know mommy's first, and they're like a distant second. Like, like I love them, but me and my wife, we're gonna be old together. And it's just, so I need to make sure that works.
Right? Exactly.
As long as that works, I'm gonna be all right, because, my goal is to get through this terrible life with a partner. It's not all terrible, but I'm saying.
How you're saying terrible life? I took a pause and
Like,
what's
what?
going on?
It's not all terrible, but I want to be with somebody forever. So I gotta. So that's a top priority. But then I get, so I have people. I'll give you an example. I have this thing when I send out my podcast to, I don't know, 600-700 people. I just send it on a text. It's like,
I get it.
might be breaking the rules. I don't know the rules of
Podcast? No.
of like sending a broadcast to 700 people. Like, I don't know, like, if that's a cool thing to do or not. I just decided I'd like to share it. They're all my friends. Like, they're people I know. They're on my phone. It's not like I went and bought a list, Not annoying people.
That would be cool, right?
And the way broadcasts work is if they don't have me saved, it doesn't even go to them. You know that with broadcasts?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, broadcasts only will go. You could put their name in, but if they don't have you saved, it's not coming to you.
Wow, I didn't know
on WhatsApp.
that. I send a lot of broadcasts. I didn't know that.
So if you want to try it with someone who didn't save you, it's not going to come to them.
Interesting.
So I don't think you're bothering, but people will reach out to me and be like, I don't understand. The only time you ever reach out to me is to tell me about your podcast. They get all angry at me, right? Do you know what I'm saying? What are you looking at?
I'm writing shh.
Oh, you're writing
My
shh.
kids are making noise. It's 1:30
You
in the
shushing your
morning.
kids?
Yeah.
It's terrible.
I shouldn't be shushing my kids at 1:30 in the morning. What am I thinking, right?
No. Your kids
That's cool tomorrow.
It's great. It's great. No, it's fine. But what I'm saying is that they'll call back and they'll say, this is the only time you talk to me? And I want to explain to them. I sent that to 700 people. I'm not really reaching out to you. It's kind of a mean thing to say. But people are really hurt because I was deeply connected to them at some point.
And now you're not.
And now I'm not. And I wonder how many people are hurt that way. But a human being can't be in touch with thousands of people. You're saying the Lubavitcher Rebbe could.
No,
I'm not the Lubavitcher Rebbe.
So through a speech or a book, you could be connected to people if they read your stuff. That's according to the Rebbe. I mean, anybody's Torahs or connection to the world is through what they give to others.
Right. I do that with the podcast a little bit.
I used to do that with sending Good Shabbos. I sent thousands of people Good Shabbos.
But even thousands of people Good Shabbos, like, I try that and, like, I will get overwhelmed. I'll do it for a couple weeks. Like, you told me to do it. There's a couple other people that told me to do it.
I couldn't.
You couldn't do it.
I stopped around a year ago, but I did it for 10 years. Every Friday.
I couldn't believe it.
6 hours a Friday sending it Shabbos. And I started Thursdays to send to Australia.
Right.
Those people in Australia that I sent to, they were really disconnected. They needed somebody, and my voice was the voice they heard for the week. But it was pretty difficult to like, I felt guilty if I forgot 1 week, but then I didn't have time for my family. A Friday like this Friday, I wouldn't have time to do anything.
Right.
I would be busy the whole time sending it Shabbos.
I was never able to do that. I try, like, before Rosh Hashanah to, like, reach out to a bunch of people. I burn out at like 100. I'm like, this is crazy. I'm still going. I actually, this is cool. And this is kind of horrible. The only time I really send a ton of voice notes is when I'm raising money.
Yep.
And that's horrible also.
And people say, oh, he's using me.
He's using me.
Yeah. I'm going to be doing that very soon, and I'm getting nervous. Every year I lose like 10, 15, 20 new old friends. They're gone. They delete my number.
Yeah.
But it's worth it.
You have to do it. I don't know what to say. You have to reach out to people and say, I need help. And if they want to help, they want to help. If they don't want to help, they don't want to help. But I think it's that they're insulted, like you didn't keep up with me.
Right.
And by the way, I remember this. I remember when I was in Israel, and I went first year. First year, everybody loves you. You know, you're the troubled kid. You know, I went to these troubled kid schools. So you're this troubled kid, and you're Shana Aleph, and they're trying to, like, make you religious, and they're doing all this stuff. And then that was all wonderful, and you think all the Rabbeim are just the best thing in the world. And then the second year comes around, and all the Rabbeim are focused on the first year guys.
Yep.
I used to call it the Shana Bet blues. And you just, all of a sudden, the Shana Bet guys are walking around like, wait, you still love me? Oh, you don't?
I'm right here.
Hello. I could wear a cross instead of
Right. I mean,
so here I am anyway. I'm sorry. I'm getting into.
it's good stuff.
It's making me sad.
Should be happy.
Should be happy.
It's the most rewarding job in the world.
Do you think it is?
Yes. I believe that, like Reb Gamliel tells me every time I come to him, if you save one person, it's 1,000 families.
It definitely seems that. It definitely. I mean, I went to this guy. Okay. I went to this guy to go collect money.
Okay.
And we gave a whole spiel for a while. And it was the beginning. I really wasn't collecting money. Like, I don't collect money much. But we went along with the fundraiser. And we gave the whole spiel. And he said, okay, I would calculate the money. The way it works is if I give you the money you're asking, you could maybe save 10 guys who were, like, on the derech and now off the derech. Right? Like,
Right.
you try to bring them back. Or I could give the same amount of money to a Kiruv organization, and they could bring back 100 people. And the truth is, at the time, I was young, and I was, like, shocked by the
numbers.
callousness
Yeah,
of
yeah.
it. You know, it was, like, so callous. And then I thought about it. The logic was so skewed. Because if you speak to any one of those not from people, you go back 4 or 5 generations,
Right.
somebody went off the derech.
True.
You know what I'm saying? I'm looking to save that person. So basically, my 10 people that I'm bringing back to the fold, to the community, are going to make thousands
From people.
of people you don't have to bring back. I mean, I'm doing, what do you call it? I'm preempting the problem.
I don't like calling this word kiruv.
No, I don't either. But it
because
was.
we're not doing. It's not real kiruv. The kiruv is when you're targeting a person for Yiddishkeit. We're targeting the neshama to heal someone. As when somebody's healthy, he'll decide if he wants to be frum or not. Imposing Yiddishkeit on anyone, I don't hold of it. It's really not my derech. It's never been my derech, and most of the guys knew that about me.
Right.
That's what they enjoyed with me.
So what is the work we're doing?
Healing. We're helping, like, there are doctors that heal people for fractured arm, strep cultures, ear infections. And then we have guys that come in, or girls that come in, and they're sick emotionally. They just need a hug to feel better. They need a good therapist, which you know more than me
Right.
about. And they just need to know that in their cruel world that they live in, that there's love, and they could find compassion, and they could find somebody that cares. And it's really amazing.
It is amazing, man.
But they heal. They really do heal.
They do. But, okay, so I'm going to say something. Doesn't it seem like the more, like, we're bailing out water and the water's coming in faster? Like, I don't mean to put it in a depressing
The last
thing.
10 years, definitely.
Like, don't you think at some point we might have to back up and, like, come up with a bigger solution? Like, this is things I think about. I'm still doing it. To me, I'm like, I'm dealing with the cancer at the end of the problem.
We need more love. We need the externalization to stop, and they're not listening much.
What I'm saying is, like, if they're not listening, so then what do we do? Like, we're just gonna keep bailing water? Like, you hear what I'm saying?
So your kids are out of the system. You say they're out of school, right?
I have one kid left in high school.
So, I'm nervous with my kids,
Right.
and they're still in what is it, 5th or 6th grade and younger, and I don't know what's going to be. I'm very, very nervous. I know if my son comes to me and I'm saying B'Shar Bas Rabim, if he comes to me and says I want to look different, and first I'll say something happened to him, but I'll say, sure, whatever you want in my home. I'm not going to stop him from anything. I hope I don't get challenged with it, but if I do, I do. I believe that most parents are destined to get challenged with it if we don't make changes. They don't like to hear it. And for me, who am I to say?
What changes? If individual parent makes a change, right? What does that do? If we're talking about, like,
I'm not talking about parents making a change. My son is in school. He's learning the Gemara the same way hundreds of kids learned it, where there's a very big percentage had issues in school with it. My other son is having a little bit of Kriya issues now. I'm nervous for him because if he falls behind, the system is not stopping. I don't think the teachers have enough time to see the issues he has. I'm getting him evaluated myself, and I'm dealing with it myself because I'm aware of it. But what's with the kids that the parents are not aware of seeing this problem?
right.
They're falling behind. I'm talking about the small things that could cause kids. Then we could go further. Then one would say them. I'm just picking another subject. I don't know if I should get into it, but molestation, for example.
Yeah.
Is it over? It's not over. It's still happening. Why is it still happening? Why is it? And according to some, it's happening in the homes. It's not happening.
Not according to some. All the research say that.
Yes. Why is that still happening? So maybe we have an issue with a co-ed problem. Maybe boys and girls need to communicate more in the firm world. Why is it lessened in the Goyish world? I'm not saying all, but than in our world. And why don't we realize that this is the rises and
it's not just. I'm going to say just statistically, every time there's a much more religious community, even in the non-Jewish world, molestation does go up, as far as I know.
Right.
So it's not just the frum world; it's also like the hyper-Catholic world, or the Mormon world, or like whenever there's a very intense religious, it seems to go up.
Yeah, they told me I drove through Poland last year. The driver told me that there are areas there that are known for that kind of issues. In Poland, like because they're very religious, they're very into their circle, basically.
Right. I don't know. It has, but okay. So I guess what my question is here, and this is something that I'm thinking about right now, but it is something I think about because people have mentioned to me, like early intervention. We gotta do early intervention, and I've been and you've been what we call in the trenches, right?
Right.
It's like I don't really care how we got here. We have some really, really sick people that are suffering, and they're suffering from mental illness, they're suffering from addiction, they're suffering from trauma, and just tons of stuff they're suffering from. And what are we gonna do about them? And then we're helping this one, and it's like bailing out water, like we're gonna help you, and it's really noble, special work, right? It is noble, special work. And everybody that's doing this work has a theory of why it's happening. We have theories and ideas and why it's happening. And you're talking about the school system, and another person's talking about trauma, and another person's talking about learning disabilities, and everybody's got their thing that what's happening. And it's probably a collection. Everybody's probably right, I think. But I think it's like the whole world is suffering from it's not just the Jewish world. The whole world is suffering from all this stuff. And maybe we should have think tanks with real research to figure out how to fix the boat. You know what I mean?
The question is, will they listen? Will the people that lead?
Well, shouldn't that be part of the think tank? How could I came up with this idea, which sounds crazy, to unionize the student body. Then they'll listen. It's a wacky idea, but they'll listen if you take away their money when they don't.
It depends where.
Anyone will listen if you take away their money.
It depends if
No, they're already listening for that money.
if they counted as 10% of the population, I'm talking about the frum world.
Yeah.
And they'll say it's only 10% of the population. Why should we care? We're going to destroy our whole mahal.
Do we know that it's 10% of the population?
We don't know, but that's what they believe. The first step would be to actually research what percentage of the population it is. And now there are people that are going to listen to this podcast and say, "Oh, you're making it sound so terrible. It's not so bad."
Right.
And that's what I've been hearing for years.
I would, yes.
Hey,
the same
a
thing.
day after a suicide, I'll hear that. "Oh, it's not so bad. You're making it sound so bad." What, that one person that died from suicide? Yeah, that one person. There's 1,000 families that didn't get created. That one person.
This is pretty horrible, but let's say it was 10%. And we locked it down, and we were like, we're going to keep our system exactly the same, and 10% is going to be snipped off, and, let weirdos like Sonny Perlman take care of it, or
Right.
Ozer Babad, and
Right.
whatever, they'll do their thing. The problem is, if you really did research, like you take Germany, right? Germany, in 50 years, a frum community, 90% of them went off the derech, or they became reform, right? Or whatever. 90% in 50 years. Now, they were on the 10% theory, too.
True.
And so was the rest of Europe.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, well, we'll snip off 10%. So the truth is, they're not studying that. They're not like Big Dial. They're not looking at like what happened in Europe and say, hey, maybe we don't want to repeat that. Like maybe that should be studied too. I'm saying like very idealistic stuff, but I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm bailing water faster than.
The question is, what could we do about it? I agree with you.
I don't even know if we know the problem. I think I have a lot of theories.
Yeah, there are many theories.
I've thought about this tons. I've talked about it tons on the podcast, but I got to be humble enough to know that I'm probably wrong about a whole bunch of my great thoughts that I think I have.
Wrong is negative. I think you're right, but not at 100% at all.
Right.
There isn't such a thing as being wrong when you're dealing with it in the trenches, I believe. There's more right than wrong, but there could be a little bit of twisting and turning to make it
I don't
more
know.
right.
I know a lot of people that are dealing in the trenches I disagree with pretty strongly. You don't know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
You might even know the people I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
probably.
But what I'm saying is there are a lot of people that have different theories, and we all have thought about it, and we like this podcast is called Brainstorm. Like I want to like figure this out, and we have all these good ideas, but it almost depresses me how many organizations we are trying to develop to fix a problem which seems to just keep growing bigger and bigger and bigger. And, like, it's almost societal. Like, maybe the problem is marriage, right? Let's say.
Okay.
Let's say the problem is marriage and strong family values and stuff like that. Maybe that's the problem. Well, marriages are going down the toilet.
Right.
My brother Ellie's doing well in his private practice. I don't like to say it that way, but he's working with couples. People are really struggling in their marriages.
Very much so. But what's the biggest struggle?
What's the biggest struggle?
The traumas in her past that are coming up, and it's not the marriage
How do
itself.
you know that?
A lot of conversations with Ellie, but no, a lot of
maybe, but I don't know if that's
true. A lot of conversations with people. I see the cases that come to me. We send people to marriage counseling as well. All the young people, if they make it through the first 5 years, it's a miracle. I can't say percentages, but a lot of couples not making it through the first 5 years. And most of the arguments, most of the divorce are based on trauma.
But I will say this, and it's a counter argument. I believe that trauma always existed.
Okay.
Always. And something was holding marriages together. People were seeming to cope better at different time periods and living lives like trauma. Like we are having our levels of mental health issues are going through the roof, our levels of divorce, and forget about divorce, unhappy marriages. Like there were a lot of people just staying in unhappily married relationships because for the kids or whatever it is, or they don't see any hope outside of it or whatever the reason is. So we're talking about if divorce rate is like incredibly high now. Let's say in the Jewish world, it's much, could be lower than the non-Jewish world.
Okay.
But it's still high. And then you're talking, you got to double that number for people who are miserable. So if it's 30%, we're talking 60% of marriages are not working out really well. I don't mean to say this, but to say that that's all from trauma, like, my question about trauma is, like, not how to stop trauma, but how do we deal with trauma that it doesn't destroy the rest of our lives? Where do we get the coping mechanisms?
I don't have the answer to that. You're saying it is. I believe it is trauma. At least one of
maybe.
one member of that marriage has trauma, and they're afraid to work it.
Well, what I'm saying is that trauma is like, who doesn't have trauma? I'm not going to be so cynical here, but
No, I hear that.
Who does not have trauma? It's so rare to meet someone who doesn't have trauma.
So then they have to want to go for help.
But if it's happening on such a huge societal issue,
then shouldn't we heal them before they get married?
do we think that we have more trauma nowadays? Like, I'm talking globally now. Like, now we're talking, is it just more trauma, or people not knowing how to deal with trauma?
They're talking about it more. The social media makes it easier. The whole way of connecting today is different than it was 25 years ago. 25 years ago, when people had trauma, they spoke about it when they were older. Their kids found out that mommy is borderline.
Right.
Because she's been mistreating us all these years, not because she's a bad person. She's just not healthy.
Right.
And then she went through abuse and wasn't addressed. Today,
and then you'd have those
they press
kids.
the word mommy's like this, and they realize, oh, she's borderline, she's sick, she's this. They have the answers.
They might have the answers, but now we have 6 out of those 8 kids are a train wreck. In the old days, you found that at 40, and you're like, oh, that's weird. I have a career, I have a job, and I can't stand my mother. But whatever,
Right.
I didn't even notice it because I didn't deal with it. I don't, meaning like, maybe I'm playing a devil's advocate here,
Okay.
but I feel like everything has to be challenged. Like, I believe the reason marriages are not working are because we have an option to be in marriage or not be in marriage.
Okay.
It's just like,
It's a good thought.
it's a theory that in the old days you had to be married, because if you didn't, you were dead.
Right.
Like,
You're all done.
and you couldn't have kids or whatever.
Right.
That was the only way to do it. So life was, you got married, and then you had kids, and then you lived your life and died. Like, that was how life was.
Right.
Now it's like, I don't need to be married. So let's say that's a theory. But what I'm saying, I guess, is that sometimes I'm sitting in the trenches, and I don't want to be in the trenches.
Okay.
I want to make the world a better place.
But sitting in the trenches is making the world a better place. That's what I was saying.
Okay, so let's take the flip. Flip results.
So you want to deal with the Mitzianim, like all the yeshivas.
But let's say I say this. I say
Okay.
we fixed 10%.
All right.
Because 10% is dropping out. But now it's 40% dropping out.
Okay.
So now we have 10% fixed and 30% are not fixed. And that number is getting bigger and bigger. Like, that's sometimes how I feel. It's like we're chasing something that's so much bigger. We're going to have to end this podcast on a happier note, because
Right, I
this
agree.
is super depressing where I'm going.
Okay.
Because me and you have a lot of conversations about what's the next move. We've had these conversations.
Right. We did.
And it's almost like I'm lost, you're lost. Like, I've been very focused on building communities. Like, that's my goal.
Right.
Like, because I think that that's something that can be spread out to everybody ultimately. So, like, that's why I kind of got off of the private practice route and all that. And, like, I'm going to build it starting with addiction, but it's going to be with everything. Like, just communities of growing people that are going to hopefully create a new world.
Right.
That's a kind of a big vision. That's my
And
idea.
this is why I'm in Tom's River in the first place. I wanted the idea of creating more of the community, bringing people together.
Right.
It's more of a healing. Like, you live in Brooklyn, you're on a block of 100 people, 100 families, you barely know 2-3 people. Here, you connect a whole bunch of people and you bring them together. You get to see that. But I'm learning how it could be good and bad both ways.
Right.
As well. But your idea is much better. Imagine taking a lot of people and bringing them into, like, you call it groups. That's another thing that we could bring up on a positive note, but groups is a great idea as well. That could save lives. If people would do more openness to speak about their issues, there would be less divorce rates and less trauma, as we call it. Because when you talk about it, you heal.
Say maybe.
Why?
Because we have more therapy than we ever had ever.
Okay.
We have more
True.
psychotropic drugs than we ever had.
Right.
We have more guidance and social services than ever, and everything is moving. And you would think that some
right
people
direction.
would start getting happier.
Right.
I'm literally challenging. Like the therapists are like, "This is it," and I am a therapist, so it's a little. I'm a traitor to my own kind right now in this conversation. But they're like, "This is it." I would hope we would start seeing, a movement towards happiness or towards like self-satisfaction.
Less therapy, less talking about therapy, less talking about the problem, and everything is solved.
I don't know.
Throw it under the rug.
That's what I'm trying to say. I don't know.
I hear.
I don't know. I brought this up before on the podcast, but I'll tell you about it and see what you think. I was driving to a lot with my daughter, and we picked up these two hitchhikers.
Nice.
It was separate, but it's a long drive,
Right.
So, and we picked up these two hitchhikers. It was really good because one was translating the other one, so I got to kind of talk to both of them. One of them knew some English, and one of them said he came from a anarchist kibbutz. It's the only anarchist kibbutz that, like, there's two in Israel that exist, which means is they have no laws. They don't believe in a leadership law system. So they have one rule: all your money goes into a pot and is separated based on how big your family is, whatever, and that's it. So if you're an artist and you make $20,000 a year, it goes in. If you're a doctor, make $200,000, it goes into the pot, and you do all this. That's it. That's the whole system.
Okay.
And I was fascinated, and I'm obviously asking a million questions. And then I realized, and this is the big question and the obvious question, well, what happens if somebody just literally decides not to work and just sleeps for 2 years? He's depressed. He's mental, he's chronically depressed. He's lying in bed, depressed, not doing anything. What happens to that guy? So he thought about it. He said, yeah, you would get the same thing. You're part of the community. You get treated that way. That's how it is. And there's no questions asked.
What if 20 people do that?
Forget about 20. I asked him the follow-up question. Why did you just think? That's what I asked him. I said, nobody's ever done that? He's lived there for 30 years. There's a guy who grew up in this kibbutz, very well-adjusted, special guy, went to the army. He was headed out there, Eilat for vacation or whatever it was, and he's lived there for 30 years, and he's like, I've never heard of it. 30 years, he doesn't know one person who is chronically depressed who is in bed. Now, is that because of therapy? Was that because... Now, this is obviously one case, a small community. I don't know, but I could think of a whole bunch of reasons why that's the case. But, like, they don't have mental health issues there?
You have depressed people in the Amazon?
It's much lower. They don't have any numbers that actually are showing. And you could have a lot of theories of why this is happening.
They say that homeschooled kids are happier.
Do they?
But that's what I heard.
I want to look that up. Okay.
I would. I have a brother that homeschools kids all their lives.
Okay.
And a lot of people in my family keep on like, that's not good for your kids. They're not going to be social. They're not going to have friends. And he's like, that's not true. They'll be fine. And they'll be healthy. In a certain sense, his kids are healthy. I'm not saying they're not depressed. And I'm not saying that they don't have social issues. But healthy, I think they're healthier in a certain sense because they're not prone to a lot of the stuff other kids are prone to. And they have a certain, like different mahalach in life to the one that we have today.
Right.
And this is to what you were saying as well. They're less likely to need a major therapy session compared to other kids, in my opinion. I'm not saying we should change the world to that, but
why not? I don't know.
Yeah.
I would love to see actual data research on homeschooling kids?
What was before therapy?
Nothing.
Yeah, but there was sexual abuse then.
Yes.
There was physical abuse. There was domestic abuse. There was everything that you'll find in every list of every organization, like even my own.
Yes.
It was all there 100 years ago.
And on top of that, they had no ACS. So
Right.
if you were getting physically abused, molested in the house,
Not
no
an
one would
issue.
take it out.
Not an issue.
You would just stay in that house and continue to get molested.
But that's still happening in the Arab, and it's still happening all over the world.
All over the world. Okay.
It,
But could you make an argument they're not doing better? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I once had somebody who runs a big organization, and he said, Mike, he said to my wife, I wasn't there, and she came to me, you wouldn't believe us. She says, was anybody complaining about the trauma? We all got molested. Like, whatever. Okay, we got molested. No,
Okay.
no. Get over it.
True. Before the
So, no, I'm
but,
saying.
but it depends how bad it is.
No, it doesn't. I'm going to say
Okay.
something. You ready?
Yeah, let's
I
go.
don't think it depends how bad it was. Now, I shouldn't say completely no, it doesn't.
Okay.
But I have met people that have dealt with trauma that I'll say it in the good way. People that have gone through horrific trauma and are doing all right. And I met people who have gone through what I would consider not so much trauma. It's a terrible thing to
Right.
say. That are completely destroyed.
Right.
I
Why
think
is
it's
that?
more about the person than it is about the trauma. Like,
Or maybe about the person that introduces them to the idea that they need to heal from the trauma. If one tells them, you'll be fine, not going to be negative with them, say, you'll be okay, everything will be fine. I'm not saying that it's not a method of healing, like not pushing it away, not saying that you don't have to heal, but don't worry about it, be okay.
okay.
And there's this person that you'll come to them and the smallest trauma, terrible, you got to take care of it. Let's hurt the person that hurt you, and let's deal with let's over expose the situation.
It could be part of it, but I think it has to be analyzed without any person involved. Meaning, we'd have to analyze it as no therapist. There's no therapist, there's no people stopping it. There's a person with massive trauma or massive traumatic events that didn't seem to really get affected so much. And then there's certain people who have much less traumatic events seem to get affected more. See, I think the question that has to be asked is not why trauma destroys people. It's why trauma sometimes doesn't destroy people. That's really the question I think we need to ask. How come you have sometimes people
Very true.
that are like severely traumatized, but somehow they're all right? Like what? Or societies that are like that.
The question is if they're all right forever or they end up not being all right.
Let's
at
say
one
they're
point
all
of their
right
life.
forever. Let's say they are all right forever. The numbers are so high about trauma that there are, every time you walk in a room, even with very successful people,
Yeah.
everybody there, like a good chunk of them, statistically, have been traumatized.
Maybe it's the ones that are doing better are the ones that have a stronger foundation, stronger parents. I heard once from Official Schechter, he was asked, he teaches, I think, 8th grade all the years. He was asked, he said in one of his shiurim, which are the kids that are the best ones of his class, the most successful students he had. So he said the ones that are most successful are the ones that the fathers had a Rav, a Rebbe, somebody in their life. Mm-hmm. It's not about the Rav, it's about the stability. A kid that has stability does better. A kid with trauma that has a stable home, even though somebody hurt him, I believe that going forward, and it's not I believe, I think looking into it now, experience of years, the ones that have stronger parents, even if they got hurt, they're going to react differently. It's just like the kid that gets a cut. If the mother reacts crazy about it, the kid will overreact. If the mother says, okay, don't worry, come, let's put a Band-Aid on, it's fine. There's stability there. The kid will not overreact. Something in that
I definitely
regard.
agree. That's where that's what I feel. And that's why I'm so focused on building stability for people who don't have it. Meaning, like when I talk about my sober livings and stuff like that, it's about creating a community of strength that are going to support you so that you could handle the trauma. I'm not going to take the trauma away. Nobody can take the trauma away.
Right.
But I could give you the strength, and we could all give each other the strength, that we could build up that trauma. That has become my mission. That's why I'm like headed in that direction, and it definitely it's wonderful to see. It's really wonderful to see the successes that are happening, but that's on a different thing. And Baruch Hashem, we're gonna stop soon because it's getting super late, and I gotta still drive all the way to Muncie,
Right.
which means I'm not getting to sleep till like 2, 3.
But it's not summer, so you can't even jump into the pool when you get back.
I know. I miss my pool. That is the most first world complaint I've ever said in my life. But I'm not gonna get to bed till 4. That's what I'm trying to say. So this is what I want to ask you for the final question.
All right.
If you had a message, and I feel like we could go on for another 3 hours because there's a lot of good talking to do. Mm-hmm. But you had a message you would love to get out to the world. Let's say this got out to 20 million people. Like it just got out to everybody. Right. What would like you like to like yell from the rooftops, like a message? Could be good, bad, it could be anything. Like what is it that you would love to say to the world?
You don't need a schmilly in your life to be as crazy as I am, or whatever drives you, Sonny, to be as crazy.
Nobody
as
knows
you are.
yet. I still right.
But the truth is, we must, like my new line. You must read between the lines, but got to be there for people. I think the most healing component in our world, but in general, is to see a person in pain and to be there for them. And don't think that if you save one person, you didn't save the world, because you did. But saving them is not making them more religious, making them feel like you're there for them externally. It's saving them is to actually be there for them in their own way, alpi darkoi, to take a person and not care for your own agenda, just that person's agenda, and not to care that it's one person. I used to go to some wealthy people for their yearly review of my organization when I worked for the last part of my life.
Right.
And they always wanted to know, what are the numbers? And I used to always say, 1. I open up 1225 for one person. And if that guy comes in, I had the best night in the world.
Right.
My wife used to always ask me in my drive home, so how was it tonight? I was like, one guy came in and we sat for an hour and a half. It was just gewaldig. We did a great job.
Right.
So if you take that 1 hour, that hour and a half, and you spend it with the person, you save their life. One of my nephews, I always told him, take any kid, he's a teacher, see the lowest one there, and just pick him up. Just the one that's sitting in the corner that does not want to be part of the class. See why he doesn't want to be part of it. He's probably the next leader, either in Klal Yisrael or in the world, the next scientist, the next doctor. Just pick him up. Take him. Take care of him. And that's the truth. We have the next kid. I spoke today to my kid's principal, trying to get a kid into school, a new kid.
Right.
And he's like, the father, I spoke to a different kid. The father drives that car. I was like, listen to me. The bottom line is that if you have this one kid that you're looking at his father and you're judging him upon his father, but that kid is the next Chafetz Chaim, the next Baal Shem Tov, the next Vilna Gaon, what are you doing? You don't know what he has to sell to the world, and you're judging him upon his father or mother and what they look like externally. We do that all the time. We see a kid walking into a shul. Right. I was in a shul this Shabbos. And you know how this works. You have all these yeshiva boys, and this one kid walks in with the jacket and the jeans to a packed shul of regular Litvish people. I wasn't here for Shabbos, so I was in a different shul. Right. And I look at him, and he feels so uncomfortable, and he's walking out, and I know his phone's on him, and his cigarette's on him. I just went over to him. I gave him a hug. I said, good Shabbos. You look awesome today. And I know he walked out being happy. I'm not saying that I was better than anyone else there, but imagine we do that. You just changed the world. Another 1,000 families were created because that guy knows there's another person that loves me and cares for me.
Right.
And that's the point. That's really my message. That's why I do what I do. One more person.
I love it.
Thank you, Hashem.
I love it. No, I love it because it's, I guess I love it because it's what I believe too. Maybe if I didn't believe in it, I don't know. Love seems to be the answer.
Yeah. Ahava.
It does seem to be the answer.
Hashem loves us.
I named my first daughter Ahava. You know that? I already believed in this.
Last parsha, Avram was told by Hashem, "Kach es bincha, es yichitcha, asher ahavta es Yitzchak, asher ahavta."
Right.
And it's the 10th Nisayan, asher ahavta. What does that mean? If Avram Avinu is told to take asher bincha yichit, this is my on-the-moment thought, asher ahavta, and put him on Akedah, and then we complain when we have es bincha asher ahavta, it's not yichitcha, and we love him so much, but we're not able to be makriv him to Hashem. We don't know what the carbon is today. How do we know? How can we judge what the carbon is?
Right.
Maybe our carbon is to walk into the rehab with him and to smile to him. Maybe our carbon is to love him when he walks in and he's a quote-unquote embarrassing us in public because he looks different than the image that we wanted. But this is what, it's his kid. Asher ahavta.
It's such
Thank
an
you,
interesting
Hashem.
thing you're saying, because I always think that, probably supposed to wrap up, but okay. I always, when I think of Amar Avinu doing that Akedah, right? I think he built a mission around that we don't believe in sacrificing people to idols. Like, that's his whole mission in life. He told it to everybody. He smashed all the idols. And then God says, go do exactly that.
Right.
Do exactly what you said that you're not supposed to do. And the only thing I think that would be interesting is if all of the people he preached to for all those years were standing around that mountain.
Yeah, that would have been great.
And watching him. I went, oh. Because how many times are we standing up there and we're like, oh, we're the perfect family. We got this. And like, it's almost like the more hush of the family, the more embarrassed they are. Because they've been preaching to the world. It's got to be like this, got to be like this, got to be like this. And then their kid is suffering. Right. And then they like the embarrassment, the test that they have to go through. But I'm like really feeling their test. I luckily I've grown up and I see the parents struggling with the same trauma as the kids.
Yep.
And it's not like I used to judge them a lot more. Anyway, I can speak to you forever, and I love you very much.
I love you too, and I think that you're doing a gewaldige thing with this podcast and with everything that you do. Can't believe you're still going to Brooklyn every day. You're at Tzaddik.
It's wild.
It is. And just to drive.
Well, I didn't talk about the Tesla yet, but the Tesla helps.
The Tesla helps, but it's still the drive.
It's still a
I
drive.
did it for such a long time.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
I missed a flight last week just driving into Brooklyn.
Really?
Just Belt Parkway. Like, who wants to sit on the belt?
It's the worst. By the way, that's your fault. You should never book JFK.
Tell me about it. The guy flying with me did not want to do a stopover in D.C. I said, we'll stop in D.C.
Stop in D.C.
I would have made the flight.
I just booked. I told the guy I'll pay whatever it takes to go to Newark. I can't go into the city.
Going into the city.
Don't do it to me.
It's crazy.
Okay, this has nothing to do with anything. I love you, and I'm looking forward to this podcast coming out.
It's a shame.
The rest of the world could hear this awesome conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you for this day that I've been given. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for this chance. Thank you for this chance to live a new